Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video, we're making this gift box, which was inspired by some perfume packaging I saw on Pinterest. So we have an outer cover, which comes off either side like so. And then inside we have a tray, which has got an optional door and an optional divider system, and then that slots back inside like so. The overall size of the box is 5 by 7 and it's 2 inches deep, and of course I've then chosen to add a divider into mine. The box will use approximately 3 pieces of A4 cardstock for the outer element, and then 1.5 to 2 for the tray, depending on whether you choose to put in the divider and the door. So without further ado, let's put the project together. We're going to start with making the left-hand side of the outer cover, and for this you'll need a piece which is 11 by 6.5, and you want to put it in along the long side. Now for this piece, if you're having single-sided cardstock, you want the patterned or the coloured side facing up, and if you're using directional paper, you want the direction to follow so that this end would be the top. So along the long side, score at 2 and at 9. Rotate to the short side, score from top to bottom at 4 and 6. Then at 2 inches, score down to the score line. Take your ruler and pencil, rotate the piece 180 degrees because this is actually how the piece is going to sit. So if you've got directional, your pieces are now running up in that direction. Line your ruler up with the 5-inch track down the left-hand side. Make sure it's running horizontally across, and make a pencil mark at 4.5 inches. So 5 inches down from the top, 4.5 inches across. So that's the first piece for the left-hand side of the cover. Put that to one side. So the next piece you'll need for the left-hand side will be 8 inches by 4 inches. Put this so that, and you want this pattern side down, because these two pieces are going to come together to form the back and the front of the cover. And you want to make sure that your pattern paper is on the outside. So along this long 8-inch side, score at 1/2 inch. Rotate the piece. Take your pencil and ruler. Line your ruler up with the 3.5-inch mark down the left-hand side. Make sure it's running horizontally, and put a pencil mark at 2 inches. And then just move your ruler down to the score line, which will be at 7.5 inches. And on the score line, make another pencil mark at 2 inches. We'll work on the left-hand side first and then come back and do the right-hand side. So these are our two pieces. So this is pattern side up, and this one is actually plain side up if you're using single-sided. Fold and burnish along all of the score lines on both pieces. We start with the larger piece. Bring in your pencil, and you want to draw a straight line between the pencil mark here down to the top edge of the score line here. So we're going to cut this, but I'm going to draw it in pencil first, like so. And then from that pencil mark across to the end of the score line, like so. So this section here, when we come to cut, we'll be cutting away. Bring in your scissors. So I've got my piece in the portrait orientation. I'm going to start by cutting up the first score line here up to the first horizontal. Remove that rectangle. I'm going to move along to the next vertical. And then I'm going to move along to the next vertical, and I'm going to cut beyond to cut away the section that we've just marked with the pencil. Like so. Rotate the piece 180 degrees. I'm going to do exactly the same at this end. So I'm going to cut down the first score line to the horizontal, down the next score line to the horizontal and remove the rectangle. And then I'm going to take a wedge from the ends of this long glue tab. So that's how our piece looks. I'm going to take a wedge from these two outer squares, like so. And then bring in your second piece. I'm going to bring my ruler in, draw a line from the pencil mark in the middle down to the pencil mark on the bottom edge, like so, and then join from the end of the score line to the top of that line, like so. So we can now cut this section away and then take a wedge from the ends of the glue tabs, like so. And now we're going to join this side together. So I'm going to start by joining the two pieces together like so. Make sure that gets nicely lined up. So this is the piece face down. I'm going to add glue onto this top 1/2 inch tab and then bring that underneath this central tab. And then I'm going to add glue to this section and bring the top across. Just make sure that you get everything nice and square. So that will actually be the bottom. So the piece is going to sit in this orientation. I'm going to add some glue to the top of this tab like so. Bring this section across. Add some glue onto here, and then I'm going to bring this piece across and line it up at the top. So that's how the left hand side will look. So for the right hand side, this piece is 11 inches by 5¼ inches. This is working on pattern side facing up. This would be the top. So we're going to start by scoring on the long side at 2 inches and 9 inches. Rotate to the short side and we're going to score from top to bottom at 2 3/4 inch and 4 3/4 inch. And then we're going to score at 2 inches down to the 2 inch score line, like so. Rotate the piece back to the long side and make a pencil mark at 6 inches. And for the second piece, for the right hand side, your piece will be 8 inches times 2 3/4 inch. Pattern side down, the top edge will be here. Along the long side, score at 1/2 and 7½. Make a pencil mark on the top edge at 4½ inches, and then rotate to the short side and score down to the 1/2 inch tab at 2 inches. And again, this is your top edge if you're using directional cardstock. So we'll start with the largest piece. Fold and burnish along all of the score lines. Bring in your pencil and ruler. I'm going to put a line in from the pencil mark on the left hand side here up to the bottom of that score line. If you keep the piece in this orientation, we're going to cut up this first vertical to the horizontal, cut up the second vertical to the horizontal, and then remove that rectangle. I'm going to take a very slight wedge from this smaller square, rotate 180 degrees, cut up the first vertical to the horizontal and remove the end rectangle. Cut up the next vertical to the horizontal, move along to the next vertical up to the horizontal, and then cut along your pencil line to remove that section. So this is our piece, and then what I'm going to do is fold this piece around and bring this piece across and just bring this top section across, because this section here is currently a lot narrower than this section. Line this right angle up and mark this across with my pencil So there's my pencil line of how far across the lid or the top comes. And I'm just going to bring in my scissors and cut just inside that. So if I bring that round, this top section sits on top of that section below. And then I'm just going to take a wedge from the end. Rotate the piece and cut a wedge from the end of the long glue tab. So that's the front portion. And then if you bring in your second piece, fold and burnish along the score lines. Bring in your pencil and ruler, and we're going to draw a pencil from the end of the score line down to the mark on the left-hand side, like so. So now we can prepare this piece. We're going to take a wedge from this bottom glue tab, rotate. I'm going to remove the pencil section. So that is our second piece. So if we bring in our two pieces, obviously these are both pattern side up. I'm going to join the two together along this long glue tab. So if we flip this over, so you can see that's going to come together like so. We can start by attaching the top. So I'm going to add some glue onto this small tab and bring this across on top of the section that we've cut. And then I'm going to add some glue and bring this top section across like so. So we now do the bottom portion. I'm going to add some glue along this glue tab here, bring this section over, add some glue onto that tab, and then bring over the base and square everything off. So these two pieces are going to sit around the inner tray, and there is going to be a 1/4 inch gap between the two as they slide onto the inner tray. And now we're going to make the inner tray. First piece you'll need is along the 10 5/8 inch side, score at 1 7/8. And then you'll have two pieces which are 7 7/8 times 2 3/8 along the long side, score at 1/2 inch, rotate, score at 1/2 inch, rotate and score at 1/2 inch. So we've got a 1/2 inch tab on the long side and two 1/2 inch tabs on the short side, and you want two of those. So if you bring in your long piece and you just want to fold and burnish on the two smaller pieces, fold and burnish along the score lines. Take your scissors. We're going to remove the bottom left and right hand corners. From the three tabs, we're just going to take a wedge. And we're going to add glue to the long glue tab. So that is going to sit along that long side like so. Now that side is stuck on, I'm going to stick on the second side. And then we're going to add glue onto these 1/2 inch tabs and secure the sides of the box in place like so. And the outer cover fits nicely on like so, and you should have a gap which runs down the middle of the box, so that just slides on but doesn't quite meet. Now, some options in terms of this tray here, you can leave this as one full tray, or you can, as I'm going to do, divide it into two sections and add a door onto the right hand side. For the door, you'll need a piece which is 3 3/4 times 6 7/8, and along the short side, score at 3 1/4. Fold and burnish along the score lines. So this is going to sit in the right hand side of the tray like so. add some glue onto there. So whilst that's drying, we can be making the divider. So you want to just sit that in so the score line is just level with the top of the box, like so. For the divider, you'll need a piece which is 4 3/4 times 7 7/8. Along the short side, score at 1/2 inch, rotate 180 degrees and score at 1/2 inch, and then score at, rotate to the long side and score at 1/2, rotate 180 degrees and score at 1/2. Fold and burnish. Bring in your scissors. I'm going to remove the bottom left hand corner, remove the right hand corner, take a wedge from that long glue tab, rotate and do the same on the other side. Rotate the piece to portrait. We're going to cut up this score line to separate these two pieces, and take a wedge, do the same at the other end. Bring this together, fold it in half, and then each of the tabs are going to fold outwards. So you have a divider section which looks like this. Bring in the box. So that is going to sit in the tray like so. And I'm going to sit mine so that the door sits on top of the divider. So I'm just going to use the top of the divider to stop the door from folding in. So you could have it this far over if you wanted, or have it this far over if you wanted. So I'm just going to glue these two pieces together just to create some rigidity and make it easier to place. And then I'm going to add my glue to each of my hinges. Slide this down like so, and just get that sitting level. Bring my door across, see how far. I'm going to come over this way a little bit. That's good, I'm happy with that, and then push that into place. Make sure it's sitting parallel. So my divider is 2 3/8 inch across from the left hand side. My door comes across like so, so that just sits on there nicely. Bring in our cover pieces. So this left hand side slots over the top like so, and this sits like so. So these don't quite meet, you get this nice equal gap. That is now ready for its additional decoration and embellishments. So I'm going to get on with that and then I'll come back. Here's my finished project. You can see I've added my pattern paper onto all of the surfaces and onto the tray. I haven't chosen to add a closure because I didn't feel it was necessary, but you could add some ribbon, which maybe you stick in before you put the pattern paper down, so that ties at the front, or maybe some type of clasp system. I'll give you the pattern paper sizes I've used. There are quite a few for the project, so I've written them down. And then in relation to the front and the back, I made some copier paper templates which I then used, so I'll leave those there if you want to use those as a guide. Just remember, when you use the templates, you want to cut your pattern paper facing up on one, and then your pattern paper will be facing down on the other, so that you can get the front and the back elements of these shaped pieces. So you might want to start off by following these as a guide, laying them on your particular box and just checking that you like the look of those. So I'll just bring the finished box back in. I'm really happy with how this one's come out, and now I've got my pattern paper on, which I've added on with Kalau. And once that's fully dried, that will become a really sturdy project. So there we have the project for today. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel, and until next time, thanks for watching.